David Menzies for Rebel News here at the Provincial Court of Justice in Welland, Ontario. And you know, folks, the irony is both profound and perverse. And what I speak of is that the Amish people first came to Ontario, well, before it was even known as Ontario, going back some 2 centuries. And it was to avoid persecution in Europe. And what do you know? In Justin Trudeau's Canada of today, they are now being persecuted, and it is absolutely despicable. This story goes back regarding the Amish a few years ago during the COVID-19 pandemic. And perhaps the most ludicrous thing that the Justin Trudeau Liberals did during the pandemic was come out with ArriveCan. Do you remember that? Well, a lot of people do, especially those who got fined. And that's the problem here. You see, the Amish people would travel from Ontario to places like Pennsylvania. They would cross the border. But you remember the rules of the ArriveCan. You had to download the app, fill out the information, and if you failed to comply, you received a $6,000 fine. Well, the Amish are people who reject technology. They don't have cell phones. They don't even have landlines. They have no idea what an app is. Regardless, the Justin Trudeau Liberals made sure to fine every man, woman, and child of the Amish faith $6,000, and those fines now total in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is a surreal story, and it gets worse, folks. A lot of the Amish people only found out about this campaign against them when they went to the bank and put their homes up for collateral to do things like buy cattle. And lo and behold, the federal government had taken out a lien on their properties. That handcuffs them financially. That means they can't get a loan. That means our federal government is economically devastating the Amish people, all about this ArriveCan nonsense. Oh, and by the way, in case any of you think that the Amish were so many typhoid Marys, the precise opposite is the truth. We've been told by the Amish off camera, because they don't come on camera, that not a single one of them came down with COVID-19 during the pandemic. Imagine that. Well, the government of Canada is persecuting them. The mainstream media is ignoring them, even though this is an incredible story. But that's not our bailiwick. Rebel News is teaming up with the Democracy Fund. The Democracy Fund is mounting a legal challenge to reverse this economic persecution. And we're going to report on this. We're going to put it into the court of public opinion to make sure that this egregious and outrageous story does not die on the vine. Please go to AmishReports.com. That's AmishReports.com. We are standing up to this persecution. We've teamed up with the Democracy Fund. We're going to need a lot of money to mount a legal defense to help these people out. Please, if you can, kindly make a donation. Now, I'm here today because one of the lawyers for the Democracy Fund, that would be Mark Joseph, he was here to file some paperwork with the court to get the legal process, to get the ball in motion, if you will. I'm just going to reach out to Mark as soon as he's outside of the court and hear what he has to say about this unbelievable story. Mark, first of all, as I understand things, we are up to about 25 Amish families and growing that the Democracy Fund is representing. How are things going so far?
Well, I can tell you today we started the process of filing a reopening application and an affidavit for 5 of those clients. And I'm told by the counter that this will be going before a JP for a decision within the next 2 weeks. So that's where we're at. Like you said, we've got 20 more interested Amish clients who we will be proceeding with after these ones, and we're hopeful for a good outcome.
You know, Mark, to me, it's almost worthy of a Monty Python sketch. The very idea that these people who reject modern day technology, as I said in my preamble, they don't have cell phones, they don't even have landlines. The idea that they have an app, they don't know what an app is. And to think that they have been fined, every man, woman, and child, $6,000. And that's a total that has mounted into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Is that correct?
Right. So we don't know the exact amounts. We do know that several families have a number of tickets, and some of those families have now had liens on their properties, and those liens can be, tens of thousands of dollars. And what we don't want to see happen is to have the government force the sale of the property and then potentially render these families homeless. That would be a disaster. So we're going to do our best to make sure that doesn't happen.
And Mark, I find this element of the story also egregious. A lot of these Amish folk, they didn't even know they were on the hook for these fines until they went into the bank and say, they wanted to get a loan for livestock, and as per usual, they put up their farmhouses or their property as collateral, and then the banker told them, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir, but there is a lien on your property by the federal government." This is very serious. This means you are effectively paralyzed in doing anything with your property, including handing it down to your descendants.
Yeah, so these communities, as you may know, they don't have a lot of capital to work with, so their capital is in their farms, their properties. They don't use electronic farm equipment, but they do need to buy some equipment to farm their land, and so they have to have access to funds, and they do that by sometimes getting loans. And obviously, if you've got an encumbrance on your property, it makes it more difficult to get a loan. So that's when some of these families discovered that they had liens against their properties. So it's jamming up the system for them. It's making it difficult for them to run their farms, and that's how they get their sustenance. So it's become a problem.
Mark, I also mentioned that if we trace the origin of the Amish into this country, it dates back some 2 centuries ago. They were fleeing religious persecution in Europe. And here we are in Justin Trudeau's Canada, and bureaucrats in Ottawa, I'm searching for the right word, it's almost like a vendetta. We're going to nail you with these fines. We are not going to cancel these fines. We are going to effectively seize your properties with liens. I mean, it just seems so mean-spirited to me, Mark.
Well, it's hard for us to speculate as lawyers about the motives. It could be that the judicial system has just moved ahead like a machine, and it's grinding these Amish clients down. There could be something more. It's difficult. As lawyers, our point of contact really is just with the clerks, sometimes the judges and the Crown counsel, and they're all regular people. So we don't know if there's something else behind this. It's hard to say. We do think that this is a terrible situation. It needs to be rectified, and that's what we're trying to do, obviously.
Mark, I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball. Today is day 1 of the process. You filed the papers. What is going to happen? Are we looking at years down the road before there's a resolution, or is the Crown, is the judge, is someone going to look at this and do the commonsensical thing of saying, listen, I'm throwing this out? What do you see the process, and how long is it going to take?
Well, we're told today, and it's our understanding that because the conviction was for a non-appearance, that it doesn't go before a clerk, it goes in front of a justice of the peace. And they'll be the ones making decision. Now, we think we have good arguments to make. We've made those in our written materials. So we're hopeful for a positive outcome. We get hopefully a sympathetic JP. But it's impossible for us to speculate as to the outcome. They say if you find me a lawyer who can guarantee an outcome, I'll show you an incompetent lawyer. So we're not going to guarantee anything, but we have some good written materials in there before JP, and we think maybe 2 to 3 weeks we'll have a decision.
Okay, well, the federal bureaucracy, they're going ahead with this, I think, in a heartless way. The mainstream media, for whatever reason, they don't think this is a story. I think it's a sensational story. Certainly the Democracy Fund and Rebel News, we're not going to abandon the Amish people. Is there anything you want to add to this discussion, Mark? Any important factor that I might have missed?
Well, all I can say is that we think that equity should demand that these tickets be dropped. We just have to get in front of a court and make those arguments. Like I say, we're just approaching the starting line here. So there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of other Amish affected. We don't know the outcome. We've been doing these tickets, TDF has been doing these tickets along with my senior counsel, Adam Blake Galipeau, for the last two and a half years. We've done thousands of them. Once we get in front of a crown or a judge, we can make good arguments, and often they're reasonable.
Well, Mark, given your experience on this file, I couldn't think of a better lawyer in the entire Dominion, for that matter, in terms of getting justice for these people. I want to thank you again for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and there you have it, folks. As I said, the Amish people came here 2 centuries ago, fleeing persecution. They're not troublemakers. They're the opposite of troublemakers. They keep to themselves. And for some reason, the Justin Trudeau Liberals and Ottawa bureaucrats have this ludicrous vendetta against them because they didn't comply with ArriveCan, partly or mostly, that is, because they could not comply. They don't have cell phones. They can't download apps. This is an outrageous story. We're staying on it. Stay tuned for more details in the weeks ahead. For Rebel News, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. It's outrageous, isn't it, folks? The Amish people first came to Canada before it even was Canada. They were fleeing religious persecution in Europe, only to be persecuted by the Justin Trudeau Liberals of today. It's outrageous. And if you feel like we do, please go to AmishReports.com. That's AmishReports.com. We are standing up to this persecution. We've teamed up with the Democracy Fund. We're going to need a lot of money to mount a legal defense to help these people out. Please, if you can, kindly make a donation.